Matt is chief pilot with the group that he works for. He's a qualified engineer, and he is an instructor as well in drones. He's got a few slides to show us while he talks, and I'm sure you'll find them very interesting. So Matt, over to you.
So I'm actually, chief pilot for RPAS Training and Solutions. I basically teach people to fly drones or unmanned aircraft. So I've got one here. Basically these things that you've probably seen flying around. I teach people to fly these for all sorts of different commercial uses. Whether it's surveying, photography, cinematography, a whole range of things that I'm training people on. There's a picture of me with one of the students and one of these. So they're fairly new technology, I guess, in aviation. I actually fly manned aircraft too, so I am in the manned side. But in the unmanned, it's allowing people to get an aircraft up there at a lot lower cost. And so a lot of these guys I'm training are using them for those sort of purposes. I'm just going to go through some of the different applications people are using them for and why they're flying these aircraft. The main thing that I see people using them for is for their vertical takeoff and landing, a bit like a helicopter, and also their simplicity. These aircraft are actually so simple compared to most of our fixed wing or helicopters. In fact, the only moving parts on these is we've got four rotors. That's it. So they're really simple, and because of that, they're quite easy to fly. All the new ones are electronically controlled. That's one there, the DJI Phantom. Probably the most common aircraft you'd see around. There's a lot of them. A lot of people buying them also as just a toy these days. Being used as a toy and also as a tool in so many industries. Whole range of different industries people are using them in. You can see there the rotors, and basically the way it controls this aircraft is just by adjusting the speed of those four rotors. So there's no other mechanical systems. If you think of a helicopter, you've got a collective pitch system that changes the angle as it flies, angle of the blades it is. Or if we look at our fixed wing aircraft, we've got all the flaps that move. On these multi-rotors, we've got nothing moving except our four propellers and four motors. One of the big applications people are using them for, and possibly putting some of the pilots out of work, is photogrammetry. Basically, with these, they can fly over crops or farms, also over mine sites, and the software in the computers basically just takes a heap of photos automatically, stitches it all together, and they can get images. There's one here. They've been flying over a crop. They can get images to see the health of the crop, how much water's in there, things like that, as well as 3D maps of the land. So a lot of farmers are using them at the moment for that application. A lot of farmers, while they're using them to survey and get images, they're starting to actually spray the crops using these too. Probably bad news for some of the crop dusters. These guys are basically flying around, and now they can actually target where they're spraying. So they fly over first with a unmanned aircraft that takes photos, and they can have software or computers identify where the weeds are out there. And then they fly over with this one, automatically sprays the weeds and doesn't have to spray the whole crop. Ends up cheaper and easier, and the farmer can do it themselves. This one's a little bit bigger and a standard helicopter style, the Yamaha RMAX. It's almost 100 kilos, this aircraft. The Yamaha RMAX, this one's almost 100 kilos and a standard helicopter style aircraft, but it's again unmanned, and offers that advantage for the farmer of not having to put a person up there. It's a bit cheaper to run, and also, I guess you could say safer, because you're not putting a person in it. Although those things will do some damage if you were to crash. For a lot of applications, people I'm seeing flying these, they are safer, because they don't have to pick people up in a manned aircraft, or also for some of them it could be doing inspections where they'd be up on a roof, things like that. There's people now flying these to get that aerial perspective without putting a man up there in the air or on a rope, whatever the purpose could be. This is another one that is really popular, mostly on the mine sites at the moment. And it's a small fixed-wing aircraft. They're about so big. About so big. Really small, quite expensive little aircraft, but basically the pilots can chuck them in the air and these things fly by themselves. They go over the mine site, taking heaps of photos and then stitching it together again with the photogrammetry, and makes the surveyor's job easy. In my training courses that I teach for work, I see a lot of surveyors coming in from the mines, and they're all flying these aircraft to make their life easy rather than using LiDAR scanners like they used to. The issue with this is the wedge-tail eagles seem to really find them attractive. I had someone come in the other day, he'd just come back from a mine site, fly back, and one of these aircraft his mine was using had been taken by an eagle, and they dropped it about half a K away, did 10 grand in damage to it. I was talking to another guy, he said his mine site they only fly in the morning and at night now, because during the day when the thermals are up, the eagles just destroy them. And apparently they're pretty smart. They sit in the corner, they do a pattern where they fly back and forward for the survey flight. The eagle sits at the end of that and waits for the aircraft to slow down and turn around, and that's where it attacks. Here you can see some of the actual images that they've collected from one of these drones. So they can use the photogrammetry software to get 3D areas and maps, and they can calculate the volumes of pits, the volumes of stockpiles. Their end of month calculations are pretty easy using one of these. And when they end up losing it due to an eagle, I've talked to a few guys, they said they were pretty upset when they had to go back to the manual way of walking out there and taking the measurements. So it's making their life extremely easy. A lot of cinematographers now are using these too. That's another big area that I've seen a lot of students coming through. This is a fairly large aircraft up on a cinema set. And now it gives the director an opportunity to move the camera around as they want. They don't need to use a boom or set up a trap. And things that you wouldn't think of as a traditional drone photo or drone video shot, they're using these for. I was talking to some guys who were working on a big feature film just recently, and they said the director at the start was a bit unsure of this idea of using a drone. By the end of it, they were flying this for what would have been a dolly shot, where they got a track and they were flying along there instead. Much easier and much cheaper as well, although their aircraft was worth, I think it was about 300 grand, which is a lot considering how small they are. One that they were actually using, that company that I was talking to, XM2 Aerial, it's a completely custom rig. And similar to how this one has 4 rotors, that one has 4 arms, but it has one rotor going up, or one motor facing up, and another facing down, which adds to the efficiency of that aircraft. Makes it an amazing design, and a lot of the cinematographers are using these for that purpose. Anyway, so that's a bit of an overview on what the guys are using this for. Basically this new drone technology, where the future is going. It's really the future of some of aviation. It's definitely not going to replace a lot of the manned aviation still, although some people could be out of jobs unfortunately. But it is a new area of aviation, a lot of new technology going into it. Whether it's the surveying, the farmers, seeing a lot of agricultural people using this, cinematographers, photographers, there's a lot of people making use of it. Alright, legally the maximum altitude is 400 feet, so it should be just below where most pilots are flying. In practice, I have heard of people taking them up to 10,000 feet. They will go a long, long way up, which is, if you don't know what you're doing, quite dangerous, because there can be aircraft up there. They use lithium batteries. So if I pull it out, that's the battery that this uses. Fairly small lithium batteries. Most of them last about half an hour. Some of the new ones, they're getting better. There are some that'll fly for an hour, especially for the survey flights where they're doing long flights back and forth. This one here, they're about $1,400, and you can buy them around here in Perth in different shops. Anywhere from $1,400 for something like this through to some of those big cinema ones, they're a few $100,000. For the survey aircraft, they're about $30,000 being used on the mine sites. So there's a huge range. Some of the manufacturers have implemented that where it automatically limits the height for that exact reason. Unfortunately, a lot of these are coming out of China and don't have those limits built in. At the moment, the legislation says that you can't fly over 400 feet legally. The issue is the issue that I see is that kids are getting these for Christmas, and those kids don't care for the regulations. So that's where the issue is in that. It would be nice though if CASA would actually military applications, there's a whole range, basically from using them for surveillance. I actually trained someone just the other day who was using them within the prisons as a mobile camera, using a military aircraft. So everything from surveillance through to the really large ones are basically the same as a manned aircraft that's remote control. Domino's Pizza and also Amazon, there's quite a few companies playing with that idea at the moment. Unfortunately though, I can't see how it's going to work with the regulations we have from CASA. It seems like a great idea, but fitting it in with manned aviation, all the other aircraft up there, I think we've still got a few years away. But it probably will happen in the future. I think that's where the future could be heading. Basically, CASA does have a lot of regulations about these, about how people are to fly them. They're meant to stay within where they can see them. How many of you guys heard about the Bunnings sausage incident just recently? A few of you guys heard about it on the news? There was someone flew from his backyard with actually one of these aircraft, same as this one. He flew from his backyard up all the way over to the local Bunnings and a string attached with a bag on it and $10 with a note asking for a sausage at the Bunnings sausage sizzle. He then collected his sausage and flew back. He was sitting in his spa, landed, and he got, I think by then it was a rather cold sausage. Anyway, that sausage, the video of him doing this went viral. He copped a $9,000 fine from CASA. So, very expensive sausage. So, for commercial use, pilots have to have a license for these, a commercial remote pilot license. Similar to a commercial pilot license for aircraft. And they also have to work under the authority of a remote operator certificate, similar to an AOC or aircraft operator certificate that you guys would be familiar with. So that's what I actually do for work, is train pilots for that. They do a 5-day course learning about air law, meteorology, all the same subjects as you would study actually for a private pilot license. So meteorology, human factors, all those sort of things. Aerodynamics. And then they also learn the practical side of how to fly these and how to deal with them when the GPS fails. Because they're easy to fly when the GPS system works, but then they're not so easy. So you actually train people for that 5-day course to get them that license. And a lot of the licensed operators do quite amazing operations. There is one operation over east. They're doing a 2,000 kilometre long flight, a long way beyond where they can see, flying a gas pipeline. And I'm not sure quite of the details of how they got it done safely and through CASA, but I believe it took them about a year and a half of back and forward with the authority before they got that approved. So basically, to do commercial work, yeah, they've got to have that license, and then they can also get exemptions from CASA and approvals for a whole range of applications. The regulations at the moment say if you want to go into controlled airspace, you're going to need clearance from air traffic control. So far, almost no one's been able to get that clearance. There has been a few of these flown near major airports. I know of one operation near Sydney, really close to the airport. Generally, they're not allowed within 3 nautical miles or 5.5 kilometres at all. But to do that operation, the operator of the remotely piloted aircraft had to tie it to the ground with a tether, so it physically couldn't get up into the flight path, and that was the only way that they got an approval from CASA. I believe Air Services is trying to enable people to work close to the airports and in controlled airspace, because that's where the future is going. But it's a real challenge for them finding a way of doing it safely at the moment. Quite a few of the police forces around Australia, or most of them now, actually are using drones. They're using it for a whole range, from surveying an accident site to search and rescue. I was talking to some of the guys in search and rescue. They were working with the police over east. They said that they were using it to fly along a path where someone had walked after an incident and using it to gather evidence. Rather than driving or walking along this path, they could just fly over it. But yeah, same with fire. I've talked to, or worked with actually, a lot of the fire departments, and they fly over a building. They can see where it's on fire, if it's collapsed, things like that. It allows them to get an eye up in the sky really quickly compared to climbing up a ladder on the back of a truck, which is a very fixed location. So yeah, police, rescue, all the emergency services have put a big interest into these lately. Shark patrol, yes, a really good question actually. Just recently over east they've been doing a lot of shark patrols using these. Another application, because they've got that eye in the sky, easier and cheaper than flying a manned aircraft over. And I believe some of them, they're now working on having the camera and the computer systems automatically detect a shark. So it can recognise a shark automatically and then notify them by using the image processing straight off the camera. So they're starting to do that over east. The safety side of managing that is CASA. I guess if you look at in manned aviation, the practical side of manned aviation is largely held by Air Services. In the future, 20 years' time, if we do have 100,000 aircraft, I'm going to guess they're going to have to develop a second Air Services for the unmanned side of things and have special highways for them through the sky. No idea how it's going to work out. I guess we'll all find out in the future if it all happens like that. But I think it will happen eventually. But I don't know the answer as to how it will be done safely. The basic cost for a license is about $3,000. That's for their commercial license. And then there's about, I think, $1,400 in CASA fees for the actual company to get licensed, to get a equivalent of an AOC, aircraft operator certificate. That one that I had back there, the small one, the prop spray, had a 10 kilo payload, so 10 kilos of spray. The other one, I think it could be 30 litre payload, the large one, Yamaha. So yeah, it depends on the aircraft again, and basically the size is just limited by the imagination and how much money people are willing to invest in the aircraft. This one can't take any secondary payload, so it is a fixed payload with that camera, but it weighs about 1.6 kilos, so they're quite light. The larger ones, a lot of them have 15, 20 kilo payloads, which is suitable for most cameras that they're using. I saw one that had a 40 kilo payload with a full cinema camera hanging underneath. Apparently the director of the film they were shooting would accept nothing less than this one camera. So yeah, it really depends on the application and that need. Yes, the blades are quite sharp, and yeah, if you put your fingers into them, they will cut. I do know quite a number of people who've done that. Or even having the blades spin up in the wind. I know of one guy, the wind was spinning it, put his hand in to just stop it, and gave him a few slices. You find that if they hit turbulence, the GPS system will maintain its position and they'll generally continue to fly as they are. For the multi-rotor disease, fixed-wing aircraft, they get thrown around a lot by the turbulence. So yeah, it depends on which style of aircraft you're using.
All right, I spent most of my life in photogrammetry, and all of the things we did in photogrammetry can be duplicated by these devices. We were doing volume calculations for State Electricity Commission coal volumes in 1957. And so that technique has been around a long while. It was manually done the hard way. These days it's done virtually automatically. And virtually everything else that we worked on. An example I used to use was that the recognition of the human eye between tomatoes and cannabis is very difficult because they're roughly the same colour, roughly the same surface, texture, etc. But once you get up and photograph them with different types of images and then analyse them, the difference is quite apparent. And so the police use these to fly around country areas having a look at this, that and the other thing. Oops, here we are, we've got a cannabis plot. And they don't have to drive in, they can pick it up from here. And there's all sorts of things like that. The sky's the limit. Matt, thank you again. Most of it.